You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Hey, this is Mr. Green, and you are listening to the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. This is a review for the 2018 Royal Rumble, which, of course, normally would not be a big factor on a channel titled the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. But seeing that the first ever Women's Royal Rumble has taken place, and not only did it take place, but it took place as the main event of the night, it bears review. You know, I don't think there's any real doubt to that. Of course, before I go on, there will be a brief recap to the matches that took place preceding that. If you haven't watched it, I would suggest that you go onto the network and take a look at it. I'm assuming that if you are listening to this, you are just wanting to hear other opinions. And of course, as I am interested in hearing yours, so if you have any opinion about the matches that took place, specifically the Women's Rumble and the events that took place in and after it, please leave them on whatever platform you happen to be. You can drop that on our Facebook page, which is Women's Pro Wrestling Network, all one word. If you haven't liked that yet, please do. You can follow us on WPN Wrestling. That's WPN Wrestling. That's on Twitter and Instagram, and WPNWrestling.com as our website. And of course, one of our major platforms, YouTube, Women's Pro Wrestling Network, all one word here. If you have not subscribed to that channel, or wherever you happen to be listening to this podcast, whether that be TuneIn Radio, iTunes, Podbean, Google Play, if you haven't subscribed on your preferred venue, then please do that as well, because those subscriptions help take up our ratings, much like leaving a 5-star rating on iTunes. That helps keep everything up and moving along. And we need that. It's always a big plus for people that's on the outside looking in that say that hey, that's a good show. And whatever reviews, whatever ratings, whatever subscriptions that you can fire out there is much appreciated. Also, to be announced before I go into the depth of the review is that the Women's Pro Wrestling Network is now a sponsorship partner to Collar and Elbow brand, which I'm sure by this point in time you've had to have heard of if you're a wrestling fan, the Collar and Elbow brand, which is brought to you by Al Snow. And if you haven't seen any of the merchandise, you should go over to collarandelbowbrand.com and check that out. Links are in the description of this podcast below. And if you are wanting to get some of the attire of Collar and Elbow brand, then you can use our code WPN Russell. That is WPN Russell. And you will be able to go and get 10% off of any item purchased. So you just make sure you toss that code in there if you want to save a little bit of money on a nice shirt. If you perhaps want the Windy City shirt, wink wink, which is a little nod towards the CM Punk logo that he had back in WWE. Of course, they can't say it's CM Punk, so we just call it the Windy City. Maybe you like the Pro Wrestling Magazine logo that they have going on there. That's for you old schoolers out there that remember the Pro Wrestling Mags. I mean, it's online now, a lot more online than it is a in-print magazine. So you might want that, or maybe the Army tee. They have some of those out there. I mean, they got a slew of shirts that's going on there. They also got some signature brands that's been popping up lately. The Good Brothers. We know Anderson and Gallows, who've been representing the Good Brothers. That might be one that you want to take a look at, or perhaps the Hurricane. You know, just any number of just go through and browse through their attire, the hoodies, the stickers, the beanies, the shirts, just up and down. But when you do that, when you decide to make that trip over to their page, when you decide to pick up that shirt, save yourself a little bit. Use our code WPN Russell, all one word, and get that 10% off. And you know that of course helps out the show a lot. So if you're going to make the purchase with us, and use all the links that we have below, even the Amazon link. If you're going to jump on and buy something off of Amazon, go use our link that we leave in the description, and that'll give a little kickback towards the show. Because believe me, you know, having things like hard drives and cameras and maintenance and whatnot cost a little bit, and all the kickback that you've given so far has been very useful. It's always helped out. Anyway. Enough of that. We're going to go right off into the bulk of the podcast, and that would be the Royal Rumble itself, as I'm sure that you've already taken a look at. So we're going to breeze through some of these in route of the final thing, because I don't want to spend exceptionally long on it. We know with the kickoff show, we had the Revival go over on Gallows and Anderson, which, seeing that the Revival lost already on the Raw 25th anniversary, the much criticized Raw 25th anniversary, it's not a surprise that the Revival would win here after the beating they suffered Monday night. Bobby Roode's open challenge was answered by Mojo Rawley. Roode retains the United States Championship. The WWE Championship, AJ Styles, he retains, which, of course, plays into the win of the male Royal Rumble later on. For those of you who watch wrestling outside of the WWE, that is. Following the championship match there, we got a tag team championship match with the Usos retaining against the team of Gable and Benjamin, or as I think they were called American Alpha 2.0, which is really funny. I mean, I'm not even sure, other than to get Shelton Benjamin a slot in the company. I'm not really sure why they broke up American Alpha to begin with, just so they can reform some variation of American Alpha, which is essentially what that is. But still, it's fun. Not going to go very deep into the male Royal Rumble again, other than to say, look, it was in Philly, and it came down to Nakamura and Reigns. And you have to imagine having Shinsuke go over on Reigns was I don't want to say a foregone conclusion. We'll just say the smarter choice. Having Roman win in that building again would probably have been death. But I think we can all agree that Roman Reigns is earmarked for the win at the Elimination Chamber. It is already announced it's a Raw exclusive pay-per-view. So we know that he's going to be in it. He's a main event guy, and barring some sort of unforeseen injury or something like that, which has been plaguing the WWE recently, barring something like that, I don't see any reason why he's not going to be entered into it, and he's not going to win. But that's neither here nor there, because that hasn't happened yet. Shinsuke is the winner of the Royal Rumble, which, again, like I said, plays into the entire thing with AJ Styles winning, because I know it's certain podcasts out there who is going to be or who is very happy that Shinsuke won. It makes his prediction have come true. That means that potentially now you have a Nakamura Styles return match at WrestleMania. They've already had this thing take place at Wrestle Kingdom in Japan. So now, opposed to having it done on Nakamura's home turf, you can have AJ Styles now doing it on his and as the WWE champion. So, bravo there. That's a big deal for him. And it may be, maybe I shouldn't get ahead of myself and say it might be the biggest win of his career, but it might be a big thing for him to go over on Shinsuke, but I'm not sure that that's going to happen. Shinsuke, this might be the big win that Shinsuke's needed because he hasn't done exceptionally well, except, when we consider those chases that he's had after Jinder Mahal for the championship and failing in spectacular fashion on each try. So maybe it's been held out for this WrestleMania victory. No big surprise that Brock Lesnar retains the Universal Championship. I don't think that, I'm sorry, I skipped over one. The Bar defeated Seth Rollins and Jason Jordan to win the tag team championships. So they have done it again. They had the Bar of Sheamus and Cesaro. They have gone back and become tag team champions. And they continue to use the Ford logo or the Ford motto that they aren't the Bar. They don't raise the bar, they are the Bar. So, I don't know. Now, getting back to what I was saying, the Universal Championship, no big surprise. Brock Lesnar retains there, and even less of a surprise that Kane was the one that ate the fall. Braun Strowman wasn't going to take it again. I mean, Brock already beat him once. And the only purpose behind having that three-way there is to make sure that both of these guys remain strong. So we need a third person in here that can eat this fall. I don't think that anybody in there actually thought that Kane was going to be the one that walked out of this thing as the winner. So, no. Braun Strowman remains strong, slamming people around, doing what Braun Strowman does, being the monster among men, and Brock Lesnar got to remain the beast. He was strong as well, beating up on his opponents. And that was that. He finally scored the victory off on Kane. Strowman gets in there and he says, "You didn't beat me." So, I mean, we know how that works. And then we move on, which was, I will say this, if you're not aware, I actually am an overnight worker, in my shoot job, as they say. And I was asleep through a good chunk of this. So I started watching a lot of this late. I just, when these pay-per-views come on WWE Network or what have you, I just go on kind of a social media blackout so that I don't get any of the information. And then I start watching it. So I was legitimately shocked because I woke up with my tablet on and just looked at the time. I was like, holy crap, the women are main event in this thing. So I was legitimately surprised that they were going to be closing out the show. And I thought about it, I was like, that had to have been one of the smartest things that they could do, because even if they decided that they were going to do something stupid in the male Royal Rumble version, by the time it got to the main event, which would have been this, it would have essentially wiped the taste out of everybody's mouth. In large part because you would have had the championship match buffering that, and then you would have gone on to the Royal Rumble match with the women. And there is no Roman Reigns equivalent in the women's match. There's nobody that exists in the women's roster that they dislike so much that they would have had a problem with winning the match. I mean, other than, I don't know, and this is a real long shot. Like, say Dana Brooke won. That's probably about as close as you can. And even then, I'm not sure if they would have gone to pieces over it. I can almost guarantee if that had happened, they'd have found some way to get that thing off of her, the championship match off of her, and transfer it to somebody else or something like that. But anyway, that's another issue. So I thought it was really smart for them to position it as it is. I also heard and read from several people who were concerned about, here comes Stephanie McMahon at the ringside. Again, if you haven't watched it, Stephanie was part of the commentary for the Women's Rumble. And, let me correct that. They announced that ahead of the match itself, so people knew going into it that Stephanie was going to be part of the commentary team. And immediately, of course, that drew some negative reaction. And I can understand it because you didn't want the character of Stephanie McMahon, the boss, to come out there and, the queen bee and all that stuff, and to be flaunting her weight around, doing the stuff that Stephanie's done for like the last 5, 6, 7 years, smacking people in the face and all that stuff like that without any sort of repercussion onto her, because that's what Stephanie McMahon does. Well, I can say that wasn't the case tonight. Surprisingly, that was not the case tonight. I was questioning it myself, as were a lot of people on Twitter and so on and so forth. Especially when I saw her coming down the ringside. But the first thing I noticed that she was shaking hands with the fans and smiling and greeting people and whatnot. So, I mean, my hope went up right there. And then when she sat down at the table and she started doing the commentary, I was pleasantly surprised. I had no problem with Stephanie as a commentator throughout this show, largely because, as I just said, the character of Stephanie McMahon, the boss, took a back seat. She didn't bring that out. She was Stephanie McMahon, CEO. I'm not going to be, foolish enough to say it was the real Stephanie McMahon, but it probably was as close to the person Stephanie McMahon as we were going to get. It was babyface Stephanie. That's about pretty much the way you could do it. And she didn't step on the toes of Michael Cole and Corey Graves as they were doing it. She's essentially Booker T left, and she came in and took his spot. And she called the match, and it was about as straight as it could be. I mean, and her job there seemingly was just to kind of add a little praise and, hey, this is our moment. I'm proud of these ladies, and and point out little things that maybe some of us didn't know. I mean, she talked about how much Mandy Rose can bench, and the names that were on Lita's arm, and just little nuances in there, which I thought was a nice touch. And give credit where credit's due. Like I said, she did not overstep bounds that she could have easily overdone, because who's going to stop her? She, other than Vince McMahon, nobody there can really say, hey, shut up and let us do our job. They're gonna kowtow to her, but that wasn't necessary. Michael Cole, Corey Graves, they both did a good job in the women's match, as did the women themselves, and I'll get to that. But Stephanie was not a hindrance. I thought she did fine, and it was easily digestible. It would be unfair of me, before going into the review of the Rumble itself, not to bring up that as much as I liked the Women's Royal Rumble, and I did, I think you have to point out that it is not entirely unique onto itself. It's not the first Women's Rumble that I've seen, and I'm sure some of you out there, those of you that frequent the independent women wrestling shows, know what I'm talking about. A number of women's wrestling variations of Royal Rumbles have existed all across the indies for a number of years. And I would even say, I think, if I remember correctly, Impact Wrestling I'm not even going to say if I remember, now that I'm saying it, I know that they did. They had their own version of it, the Gauntlet for the Gold and whatnot. So these things have all kind of taken place in various locations and with various women, with maybe minor changes to the rules, but it's all been there. I bring that up to say this, in the same way that I talked about the Mae Young Classic. This isn't unique unto itself, but the one thing that the WWE is going to do, that all of these places that have tried and done some variation of it, the independents, which, I've seen some online, I've been some in person, I've seen it at Impact Wrestling, I've seen many, many, many different variations of that. The one thing that the WWE is going to do that the rest of them just simply cannot compete with is that they're going to break out all the stops. And that's exactly what they did. They broke out all the stops to make this look, sound, taste, feel like a big deal. First thing, as we just said, Stephanie McMahon coming out at ringside, adding herself to the commentary and calling it straight, not calling it as a character who I hate these girls and none of them can hold a candle to me and this, that, and the other. She was as babyface as you could be. Maria Menounos essentially stepping in as a celebrity a ring announcer of sorts. So she came in and took the mic from JoJo and announced then some of the ladies. Having both brand champions sit ringside, Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, both coming out and sitting there front row to the action that took place. And they did everything that you would expect and want out of any Royal Rumble. When they said they weren't going to change the rules, they didn't change the rules, and I think they deserve great credit for that. They came in at 90-second intervals opposed to the full 2 minutes that sometimes we've been kind of used to. But we had that, and we had the general spots that you get out of a Royal Rumble. The spots that you get out of any year of any Royal Rumble are as follows. You have to have the all-timer of the match, the person that comes in the early number and lasts the longest. You have to have the giant or monster spot in the match, usually originated by Andre the Giant, usually fulfilled over the last couple of years by the Big Show or Kane. Most recently, it's been fulfilled by Braun Strowman, but you have the big person that comes in there that it requires all our power and collective effort and forces to be able to take out because they're the biggest threat available. And you have I was going to say celebrity, but it's not really a celebrity. We'll call it the legend spot. The legend spot is there basically for, hey, somebody we recognize from years ago, and then once their music hits, it's a big pop for the crowd. And, oh man, I haven't seen them forever. And they get to come in, they get to do some cool stuff, and then they go out. That's basically the three major spots that we have per any Royal Rumble. The women's match did not exclude those, and they incorporated it as well as anybody else. So we have coming in at number 1 and 2, representing the 4 horsewomen, Sasha Banks, who drew number 1, not a big surprise, at least not for me, and Becky Lynch, who came in following her. So that was nice that your history makers, or at least arguably the girls who helped kind of push this whole narrative of the women's evolution, kicking it off. We already got one at ringside, but now we got Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch coming into the actual match and kind of pushing along. And I'm not going to bring up everybody that was in per every single slot. That would take too long. But needless to say, we had representatives of Absolution. We had representatives of the Riot Squad. We had a lot of the girls from both SmackDown and Raw. But we also had our legend spots. The first of which was Lita, and once that music hit, that crowd stood. And I would say that once you got to, say, the 9th entrant, which is Tori Wilson, by the way, it was no longer a real secret, with the exception of 1 or 2 other people. It was no longer a real secret. I was like, who's going to be into this thing? Because a lot of, the faces that I saw showing up were the ones that I saw on the Raw 25th anniversary a week ago. So, if you saw them on that stage, there was a good chance that they were going to show up in this match. So we moved on with that. It was nice to see Lita coming in. It was great to see Kairi Sane show up there, and she showed up with her pirate music, which was nice. And she came in and she did the clean house spot and walked the plank and dropped the insane elbow, although they called it something else I can't remember right now. Tamina Snuka kind of came in and went out. I don't know what to say about her anymore. I think I pretty much have lost all hope for Tamina Snuka at this stage of the game. I don't think her ever winning the championship is in the cards all due respect to her. We had Tori Wilson come in at number 9, so that was another Legends pop, which she looked great. Tori was never a exceptional wrestler for me, but she looked fantastic. She does her yoga thing, and she's still in really good shape. And so it was nice to see her out there doing her deal, and she got an elimination off. So bravo to her. Molly Holly, she also made a appearance out there, which was cool to see her. And she got to break out the Molly go round off of the top rope. I'm sure Sasha Banks was very giving in letting her put that out there. Sasha, by the way, was the number 1 entrant and still hanging on. Lana came out to an ovations chant of Rusev Day, even though at some point in the match she started yelling "Is my day" to the girls in the ring. After she took a complete beating from DeVille and Morgan, I believe, representatives of Absolution and the Riot Squad. So Lana's tenure in there wasn't all that long. The one person that I personally kind of popped for, and I have to admit, because I had been a kind of a fan of hers for some years, was Michelle McCool. Seeing her pop up in the ring and doing as well as she did, I was really enjoying that. And I so wanted her to get down to the Final Four. I wanted McCool to get down to the Final Four. And if for nothing else, once I saw her show up in there, I said, Trish Stratus is going to appear here somewhere in this match. That's just a given. In my mind, it's like she has to show up. And I never got the chance to see that real one-on-one confrontation between McCool and Stratus. Yeah, we got the WrestleMania match and a little bit of the feuding that they had between Flawless and the Brunette Mafia, as they called it at the time, with Trish Stratus and Snooki. If you can believe that, I mean that's hard for me even to say. And I was at that WrestleMania when they had the 6-person tag with McCool and Trish Stratus on opposite sides of the ring, but we never really got that big confrontation. It would have been nice to have seen that, but McCool came in and started cleaning house. She was like one of the first people in there that kind of was tossing people out just left and right. I believe she got somewhere up into the nature of 5 eliminations before she actually went out over the top, which broke my heart, by the way. I was a little disappointed to see that Michelle went out. And now that I think about it, she may have had the single most amount of eliminations that night. So, how about that? Anyway, Vicky Guerrero. Vicky Guerrero also made an appearance. And you know what? Now that I think about it, I forgot that was one spot that was not mentioned, and it's the comedy spot and the Kofi Kingston "How Can I Get Out of Trouble" spot. Those are 2 other things and I forgot the Kofi spot because it had been essentially an act designed, built around, and centered for Kofi Kingston. He's been doing it almost every Royal Rumble that he's been in. He's found some kind of way to avoid elimination, only to be eliminated 2 minutes later. But those are 2 other spots. You got the comedy and you got that. So we got the 5 spots of the Royal Rumble, which here again they found some way to work into. So you got a double hitter with Vicky Guerrero walking out there being the legend and also essentially doing the comedy. She's screaming on the microphone, "Excuse me." She was a surprise because I wasn't expecting her at all. In fact, the last time I had seen or heard anything about her, Saraya Knight had announced that Vicky Guerrero had agreed to come and I think be the GM for one of their events. So that was the last real note of Vicky Guerrero that I had seen. But she comes out there and she is just yelling at all of them. There's about 4 girls left in the ring at that time. And she's giving them the what for just until she realizes that she's actually united them all against her. And they forcibly send her out of the ring with, kicking and screaming onto the floor. Thinking McCool, Lynch, Banks, and Ruby Riott all kind of throw her out over the top rope. So that was your ha-ha moment of the night. Although Vicky did get one additional shot in on Carmella as Carmella comes out to the ring. She starts moonwalking, and Guerrero grabs that briefcase and just whops her with it, leaves her out on the floor. And that leads to opening for Natalya, who's the next person following that, and drops her jacket essentially on Carmella's body. Her prone dead body. She's done with that. So we got a few more legend spots. Kelly shows up. Jacqueline shows up. I mentioned earlier Kairi Sane, and I forgot to say that that was our NXT reference of the night. But we also got another NXT reference of the night, which was surprising. Ember Moon, the NXT Women's Champion, comes out there with the belt in hand and enters into the match, which I thought was a really cool spot for her to have because, hey, if you're the NXT Women's Champion, why not get into the Royal Rumble if you had the opportunity to do it and, potentially go into WrestleMania champion versus champion. I mean, we've essentially had, that match take place on a Monday Night Raw when Paige appeared. She was the NXT champion at the time, and she beat the then Divas champion AJ Lee to become it. I mean, it was a nothing match. I mean, it was a good moment. It was a cool moment. But the match was really, wasn't no big deal in and of itself. They were going to have better matches. But I mean, it could have been a cool little thing to have Ember Moon win and go on. She got to interact with people that she, more specifically Asuka, who would come into the match later on. She got to interact with her, who we haven't seen those two cross paths in a long time. And now we were getting up to the high ranking numbers, which of course is always the big spots of the night. Beth Phoenix, who I was happy to see her too, and she still looks phenomenal. Came in, and I mean, you could tell that she is another person who has worked out and kept herself in shape even after becoming a mom. She's still doing her deal, and she had her muscle versus giant moment with Nia Jax, and we had a reunion of sorts of the Divas of Doom, Natalya and Beth Phoenix, who had been running partners back in the day. They did a spot where they essentially got Nia Jax out of the ring. They didn't eliminate her, but they more or less shoved her out. Which Beth and Natalya, Beth gives her this great big hug, and she looks like I haven't seen you in forever, and she looks legitimately like she loves the fact that they got the chance to do something again just one more time. And then Natalya just took that away from her and tossed her out of the top rope. So, it felt like it was that whole point of, I'm the top chick here now, get out. Mickie James, of course, she comes out there and she has a late spot. She's at number 26. We got the Bella Twins coming in 27 and 28. Bailey, who came in number 29, and the 30 spot was Trish Stratus. She had the best pick of the night. And I was, convinced there for a little while that Trish was going to win this thing. I was like, man, they gave her the 30 spot, and she's hanging on here. She's getting down to the final run. But no, it didn't happen. Sasha Banks, who had held on until the last 4 women in the ring, got rid of Trish Stratus. She got it. She had her moment with Trish also. This probably was the night of nights for Sasha Banks because she got to interact with almost every legend that she grew up watching on TV. She interacted with Molly Holly. She interacted with Lita. She interacted with Trish. She interacted with Michelle McCool. She was there face to face with all of them, even if it was just briefly. And she got up in Trish's face like, this is my place. Now I'm the boss here. And they had that moment. Trish gave her the old boss treatment. She did what Sasha Banks does. Got a rise out of the crowd, and she was about to break her off with the Stratisfaction Bulldog springboard. But Sasha Banks, as wild as she is, shoved her over the top rope instead of letting her springboard, and she went out to the floor, and Sasha would continue on. So now we're down to the Bellas and Sasha Banks and Asuka. Asuka's hung on here. All the other girls I was talking about were eliminated earlier. Bayley and I think Bayley was eliminated by Sasha Banks also. Well, no, you know what? Actually, I might be wrong about that. I'm sorry. I'm just, getting off of it. But anyway, so we get down to the Final Four. That's the important part. Bayley was eliminated by, it'll come back to me a little bit later on. It might have been Sasha Banks, but don't quote me on that. I have to go back and watch it. So we're down to the Final Four. The Bellas, Sasha Banks, Asuka. And for a moment when we got Asuka and Banks, they come face to face in the ring. They are looking like they're about to square off, but then they turn their attentions towards the Bella Twins. It's like Sasha tells, hey, look, we can sell this between us two after we get rid of them. But just before they get ready to attack the Bellas, Sasha turns on them. So in the base of this match, even though she's still a popular girl, Sasha was breaking out some of that heel boss tactic. And she puts Asuka down, and the three of them jump all over Asuka. And they get up in the corner, and we know that Sasha's setting Asuka up for that elevator drop when she did the double knees down to the midsection. She's smacking Asuka in the face. She's like, I'm ready for Asuka, yelling at her like that. And as soon as she jumps up to do it, both Bella Twins scoop in underneath her and toss her out of the ring, over the top rope, out to the floor. And the look on Sasha's face just said it all. It's like, I don't believe this. And she went number one right past number 30 and was so close to winning it, and she just bit the dust. So now you got the Bella Twins who are doing the Bella Twins stuff. Both of them are holding that big L, and to quote the New Day, take this L. They gave the L to the Sasha Banks. They called it a loser. So now we got the Bellas and we got Asuka, and they are still trying to get her out of the ring. Now, although the Bellas are 2-on-1, so they take control. But we have another Royal Rumble moment, and it is Nikki who eliminates her own sister Brie. Brie gets turned on and she gets eliminated, and now Nikki says, hey, is my time. And I gotta say, I enjoyed this Royal Rumble, if for no other reason than moments like that, because it did feel, that every woman for herself, every person for herself thing. I thought that this Royal Rumble was done right, and again, you didn't have that whole cloud hanging over it of a Roman Reigns type individual where people were going to crap on it. Everybody was sitting there and just enjoying the show. That is the most important part of it. They sat there and they enjoyed the show. Everything just felt pure, felt like a good wrestling show. So anyway, you're down to Nikki Bella versus Asuka, and Nikki's doing a really good job. I mean, she's I had to give her credit, hoisting Asuka up, walking over to the ropes, and I didn't think that she was going to win, but she certainly painted the picture that Nikki could take this thing. She gets her out over the top rope, but Asuka doesn't go to the floor. Nikki tries to charge in, but she gets caught coming on the way back. Asuka catches it and hooks her leg around the throat of Nikki Bella, and what Michael Cole and I agree called a unique elimination from Asuka, and it was. I mean, she's having that leg hook around the throat of Nikki. I mean, I thought she was going to take her right over and out just with that alone. But it took a little bit more. She got her out to the apron, and then she was able to kick her off from that point. And so there we have it. Asuka became the winner of the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. So there can be a next, but there can never be another first. Asuka will continue, and she will go down in history as the first ever Women's Royal Rumble winner. And as that happens, we have both champions, Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, walk into the ring. In between them, Asuka stands looking at them both, saying, well, she didn't really say anything, but just kind of looking them over, man, because the decision isn't going to be made today, or at least it wasn't made tonight. that she was going to make that decision a little bit later on, apparently. And just as that was going on, I guess the big surprise and maybe the confusing aspect of it, and you got to know that they did this solely so they can make people tune in to Raw Monday night. The music of the newest WWE signee begins to play. Ronda Rousey, sporting a very hot rod-esque look, comes out to ringside. She's got the leather jacket like Roddy Piper. She's got the Roddy Piper shirt with the hot rod font and breaking out the jeans. Now, of course, she asked him well before he passed away, about using the name Rowdy Ronda Rousey. So apparently the WWE is kind of pushing that whole narrative that she is, I guess, the successor to that title. And I don't know how much she's got involved in her look and the shirts and whatnot, but there she is. So you got two of the MMA Four Horsemen as full-time signees to the WWE based on NXT. Rousey on the main roster. She skips right over that. And she comes out the ringside. And she goes into the ring with a Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, and Asuka waiting. And she looks at him, and she stares off against Asuka, who's just won the Rumble. And this is the spot that I love the most. She slowly extends her hand out to Asuka. Asuka slowly extends her hand back. And just before she touches the hand to shake it to Ronda Rousey, she slaps it away. Asuka has been walking a fine line of babyface heel since she got there, and she has not changed, and I love it. I love it. I love that she didn't change it, and I love the fact that having a Ronda Rousey there didn't mean jack shit. For her, it didn't mean anything. She just smacked it away and just kind of gave her that Asuka stare. Now, I will say, before it goes any further, I do not think Ronda Rousey should be beating Asuka. I don't. I mean, I want to just put that out into the universe right now. If they do have Ronda wrestle against Asuka, she should not be the one to take that victory away. She shouldn't be the one to be the first one to pin or make Asuka tap or submit or whatever. I just don't feel like that. MMA aficionados that I kind of hang out with and talk with will tell you that Rousey is not a good striker, which is why she's not doing that right now. She was a great grappler with her, I think, judo background. But her inability to fight a fight, punching-wise or striking with kicks or any strikes whatsoever, her inability to do that is what cost her last two major fights, Holmes and Nunes. So I say that to say this, that within the kayfabe universe of the WWE, if we were going to base it off of that logic, Asuka is as good a challenger for Rousey as anybody. As Asuka is a striker, and why Rousey may not be able to or shouldn't be able to handle that. But anyway, that's predictions for another day. I shouldn't go off of that. We had the stare down between Rousey and Charlotte Flair. Alexa Bliss felt like kind of a lost thought in this whole process, because even before Rousey got out there, the thing that fans were chanting for, they were chanting woo. They were doing that whole thing when they saw Asuka and Flair. They were looking at that as the potential match. I mean, we've already seen Asuka tap Alexa Bliss out. We've already caught that match on the Monday Night Raw. So the intrigue was Asuka and Charlotte, which intrigues me because they haven't had that confrontation. They haven't got the chance to go up against each other. And quite frankly, the two of them up against each other at a WrestleMania very well could be a headline match. I mean, that could close out the show. I'll go on record to say that right now. Asuka and Charlotte Flair could close out a WrestleMania. And then, Charlotte would have succeeded in accomplishing her goal. She said, hey, I want to main event WrestleMania. Well, that could do it. That could easily do it, in my view. But like I said, Alexa felt like a little bit of a lost start. And then, once Rousey came out the ringside, then here again, it was Rousey addressing Asuka. It was Rousey staring down Charlotte Flair. Alexa was there, but we didn't, it didn't feel as if she was a factor within that combination. The things that people wanted to see, or the combination of matches that they wanted to see right there, was either Rousey versus Asuka, Rousey versus Flair, or Flair versus Asuka, or Flair versus Rousey. One of those combinations. It didn't feel like Bliss was a factor in that. Leave your comments about that. I mean, is that something that you wanted to see? That's what I want to know. Were you even concerned, or like, does Rousey Bliss even excite you at all? Does that make you feel like a match you want to see? In any case, Rousey gets out of the ring. She goes around ringside. She's clearly working the babyface thing, and she goes over to Stephanie McMahon, who, they've already had that confrontation out of WrestleMania, but Rousey extends her hand, and cautiously Stephanie shakes her hand back. So we don't have the same kind of exchange that we had with Asuka, but it was a great debut. They brought Rousey out. I think we've closed one chapter of Rousey's life with the UFC. She was one of the biggest money draws of the mixed martial arts world, and now she has stepped into the WWE, the biggest wrestling platform in the world today. So she's gone from one big money platform to another, much the same way that Brock Lesnar has done, and in some cases has continued to do right up until his last fight. So time will tell. Time will tell what will happen with Rousey and how good she is. We've seen how good Baszler is. I mean, Baszler isn't a perfect wrestler by any stretch of the imagination, but she gets it. She has an awesome presence, and she has done something that Rousey has not done. She was willing to start over. Baszler went down to the independents from a top-ranked MMA position, so to speak, and she came down and she worked independent. She worked around the world. Now, her name did get her more money than most other people, and it got her probably better matches, but she got to work and learn from some of the best female wrestlers out there on the circuit. I mean, we're talking from your Chili to Melissas to your girls in Stardom to Mercedes Martinez, the girls in Shine. I mean, she's done it. She's gone all around the world, starting over from scratch. I mean, we got to remember, Baszler's only about 2 years in a pro wrestling career. Rousey's a lot less than that. Rousey's only like, technically she hadn't even begun. She's trained, but she hasn't really even started doing her wrestling deal just yet. So it'd be interesting to see how well she does, because she's getting fast tracked. She's getting fast tracked right on up to the top. So I will be tuning in on Monday night to see if what the world is going to hear from Ronda Rousey. And like I said, that was, we all have to know that was the whole reason that she came out here and now on the Royal Rumble show in Philly. And, with this huge debut, we know now that she is a signee to the WWE, and that is probably going to be all it needs to at least pop a rating for Raw tomorrow night. All right, folks, that's it. That is the review of the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. It was an enjoyable show, and like I said earlier, it may have happened in many other places, but you knew that the WWE was going to break out all the stops, and that's exactly what they did. They broke out all the stops, and they gave probably the best show that they could have given based on that. So, they can't go backwards now. You've already started. They've already opened Pandora's box, so I guess we got to look forward to double Royal Rumbles from here on out, the male's Royal Rumble and the women's Royal Rumble. So that should be interesting. And I guess that's the perk of having a WWE network. You can do whatever you want, book whatever matches you need. Again, thanks for taking the time to listen to this podcast. If you are a fan or a listener and you like what you hear on the Women's Pro Wrestling Network, your support is very much appreciated. either through subscription or supporting the links that we are sponsored by, that being Amazon and the Collar and Elbow brand. Just use the links below, and that will help directly through whatever purchases that you may make. If you just remember, if you're using the Amazon link, it'll go directly just by clicking the link and by making your purchases through that. If you are doing it for Collar and Elbow, just make sure that you use the code. Use WPN Russell, and that'll fire you the 10% discount, and that'll score points with us. So on that note, thanks for listening. Thanks for your time. Leave your comments below what you think about the Royal Rumble, or how you felt about the debut of Rousey, or whatever. And we will catch you on the next go-round. See you later, guys.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.